Um, One thing I've been talking about to some people is I was at a church about 2 years ago, and they were in the process of, for a couple days there towards the end, like I think it was like a Thursday, Friday, might have been a Friday or Saturday or Sunday thing. I don't know how long it was, but I know it was a couple days towards the weekend. But they were in the process of trying to, I guess they didn't have any elders in the church, so they managed to get 3 new elders. So they were doing a couple day type thing going on. And one of the sermons that they had was talking about, the guy was like talking about decline in church service, saying that there was, back in the 40s and 50s, that there were a lot of more people going to church than are now. And of course it got me thinking, and I came home that night, and of course next time I saw my mother, this was prior to her passing away, and I started talking about all what's some of the factors that going on, reasons. I told her about the sermon, and of course I told her some of my theories on why there's a decline on church services, starting with TV, because how many people back in the 40s and 50s had TV? Because I think people were more active back then, living more of an active lifestyle back then, and they weren't couch potatoes like we are nowadays. I think that's one of the factors, because I think now people, instead of going to church, some people will say, well, why go to church when I could just watch somebody like Joel Osteen on TV? I could just, it would save me a trip, having to go gas and trip to go actually see it, go to church when I can see somebody preaching on TV. And I told her that's one of the factors, and then I told her another factor is people started getting college degrees, because how many people, like how many people 100 years ago had a college degree compared to nowadays? And I told my mom, I heard that a lot of people that have college degrees are less likely to believe in a organized religion, and pretty much people that are like my parents' generation were like, there was a lot more people from my parents' generation that actually got their college degree. That's what I was telling my mom, from her generation, and that kind of gets people to stop going to church, because of the whole that. And then of course you have that Catholic. What happened with the Catholic Church played a role in it, because it got people probably like, I don't want to take my kids to church because those pastors might do stuff to my kids. Then of course I told her another factor would be, as I told her, by my understanding, pretty much there was nothing open on, most things were not open on Sundays back in the 40s and 50s, because there was laws into place that Sundays are the day of rest, and nobody should be allowing no business. For the most part, most businesses were closed on Sundays. But because of the things like Walmart, malls, McDonald's, were pressuring the people in power, the politicians, to let them open up on businesses on Sundays, which means people are going to be working on Sundays, and if people are working on Sundays, they're not going to church because they're too busy at their jobs trying to make money. And I told my mom that plays a role in it. And I told her, my generation and younger, I think part of the reason why my generation and the younger generation are not going to church is because we could just watch a lot of this, like sermons on YouTube or like Facebook or social media, basically on our phones. So we don't need to sit there and go to the church. I know one of my some with the older millennials like myself, we I think part of the reason why we start question and of course deconstruct our religion and all got started pretty much during, I think, that 2008 housing crisis, and seeing how how the churches were doing at that time, everything that was going on. I think mainly what I'm getting at is mainly the hypocrisy in the churches of what was going on around that time. And then I know a lot of people will sit there and say COVID is the reason why a lot of these churches are not doing good nowadays. But like I said, I think it got started with my generation, the older millennials, about 25 years ago, when we were during that, I want to say about 25 years ago, because we started like noticing all the hypocrisy in the churches, from people that say, "Do as I say, not as I do." And of course, when I started talking to one of the pastors at a church around here, it would be the Methodist Meadowbrook Poly Methodist Church. When I was talking to the pastor there about it and my theory about what declines, she said another thing. She put her 2 cents in by saying that there's more of a social pressures back in the 40s and 50s to actually go to church. Nowadays, nobody's like trying to look down on you or talk down to you if you don't go to church. I know I know some of my neighbors, they'll say that they're Christians, they believe in God, but they don't go to church. One of my neighbors, he says he stopped going to this one church because he didn't like the direction of how the elders were taking the church at. He's just basically having problems with some of the leadership of that church. And then a different neighbor, she actually quit going to one church because she was tithing every week, and she found out that the pastor's son was basically putting his hands in the collection plate and taking the money for himself, and she feels like that's a no-no. That the money should be there to help this church and keeping the church alive, and not trying to help the pastor's son out. Man, I think some of the reasons why people, and of course I got one of my neighbors, he says he feels like he could be home and worship God at home. But of course I think just talking to him, he doesn't seem like he seems like he has trust issues. Like he doesn't trust people as easily as most people. That's one thing I've noticed about some of these churches too, is when I go to church, I've noticed some of these people at the churches don't seem to want to trust people that they're not familiar with, thinking that people like me might be up to no good. And of course, the problem is one of my biggest problems with people in church is they tend to say they feel like they try to act like they know everything about me, want to tell me what I should do with my life, how I should live my life, but they don't want to actually live their own, practice what they preach. Basically, I'll give you an example. I've had Christians tell me what I should do with my money, but then if I tell, how I should save my money, but then if I say, okay, if you think I should save my money by not spending money on this, that, and the other, then you should not be spending money on this, that, and the other too. But, some Christians get all defensive, think it's okay for them to tell you how you should live their life, how you should live your life, but yet if you go around telling Christians how they to give them what they tell them basically what to do with their money, they'd be like, no, I should be spending $300 a month on cable, or spending $25 for a 12-ounce bag of coffee. But like I said, it's like, and of course, like I said, I've noticed it seems like a lot of Christians nowadays also have been deconstructing their faith in God and posting why on social, like on YouTube, which I think it takes, when people start watching these Christians deconstructing their faith and why and all this other stuff, then more and more people are going to sit there and start saying, okay, notice these people are like, hey, listen to these people on YouTube about, okay, maybe this religion is not for me. Maybe God's not real. So this is why another reason why I say social media, like YouTube and stuff, helps influence people to not go to church. And I think that's parts of the reasons why there's a decline on church services. The pastors there aren't really being good shepherds by trying to keep their flock. And I know a lot of people say that COVID played a role in it, but some people will say maybe people were already having one foot out the door and COVID just basically pushed them out the door. And I've noticed it seems like being around Christians, some of them are just what they call surface level Christians. So maybe some people are just saying they go to church, saying they're Christians, but are not Christians. I have even had one youth pastor telling me that Christians will talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk. But yet atheists, non-believers seem to they don't talk the talk, but they walk the walk. Basically, that's what he was saying, implying when he said that he's noticed atheists act more like God-fearing Christians than Christians do. And yes, there are some churches around in my neck of the woods that basically either that are pretty much on a decline in my neighborhood long before COVID, because there's some churches that are closed down almost 20 years ago because the decline of church services, of people going to churches. And I think a lot of it's because of my generation are not wanting to go to church because of all the, how church we started with seeing all the hypocrisy in the churches and do as I say, not as I do, blah blah blah. I think what people in church need to do is they need to stop and think, what should we do to prevent stuff like this from happening, and try to be like, hey, we need to start actually listening to people instead of trying to argue with everybody, and start holding some accountability and saying, maybe I'm part of the problem why people are leaving the church and why young people aren't staying, because I can't keep my mouth closed. I have to be nosy. I have to put my 2 cents in, blah blah blah. Sometimes people just need to mind their own business at times.